One of the great things about Photoshop CC is that it keeps on evolving. We don't have to wait a year and a half to get our hands on the latest technologies. Now they just fall into our lap the moment they're ready. In this tutorial, we're going to look at the new features in the Select Color dialog and see just how easy it is to turn this daytime shot of a fruit shop into a night scene in just a few minutes. So let's go to Select and Color Range. Now here's a dialog you're familiar with. When you click on a color in the image, that range of colors is selected throughout the entire scene. And you can drag the fuzziness slider to select a wider or a narrower range of colors. What's interesting here is when we click on the Select pop-up menu, and we can now choose to select highlights, midtones, and shadows automatically. Now in this scene, we want to darken the shadows and the mid-tones, but we want to leave the highlights alone. So let's start by selecting the mid-tones. And you can see that what's shown in red here is the selected area. We want to include all these shadows, so let's go onto our range slider and drag the lower slider to the left, and that now includes all the shadows. We can also increase the range towards the brighter area so we get some of the sidewalk coming in, and that looks pretty good to me. Let's click on OK. And there's our initial selection. Now we can refine this a little with the lasso tool. So let's start by including all of this sidewalk. If we hold the Shift key down, we add to our selection, so I can loop around these boxes in the front, go all the way around the bottom of the image, and there is our new selection. All that sidewalk is now included. Let's also include the canopy over the top of the store, so Shift key once again, and now that's included as well. Now we have the selection as we want it, we can make a new adjustment layer. We'll go to Layer, Adjustment Layer, and choose Curves. Now when you make an adjustment layer, if you have a selection active, that selection becomes the layer mask for this layer. So when we now click in the middle and drag down on this curves adjustment, you can see we're darkening everything that was selected, but we're not darkening the unselected areas, in this case the highlights. To get a better nighttime effect, we really need to have more blue in the scene. And while we could go to the blue channel and increase that, it's better to go to the red and take some of the red out, and then go to the green channel and take out some of the green as well. And that gives it this good, strong, rich, blue evening feel. We can put the properties panel away now. Now, one of the great things about adjustment layers, again, is that, of course, having made the selection, you can then easily modify it, in this case by painting on it. So if we go to the brush tool, where we paint in black, we're going to hide the effect. So we can paint in black over this doorway, and we can have the interior of the shop there now fully lit. Let's do the same thing over the windows and over some of these plants near the source of light. These stands at the front here were not included in the original selection because, of course, they're very bright. They were part of the highlights of the scene. But because they're facing away from the light source, I want to darken those up. So let's now switch between foreground and background color, and the X key will do that. So now we're painting in white, and where we paint now, it will make the adjustment layer active. So if we paint along the front of these, that's now bringing them into the shaded area. That's looking pretty good, but because we've got all this light inside the store, some of it really needs to be spilling out onto the sidewalk. Let's paint in black to hide the adjustment, and we'll reduce the opacity of this brush to just 30%. And we can do that by pressing the number key on our keyboard. As we paint now, you can see we can make some of this light spill out onto the sidewalk out of the store And because we're painting at a low opacity, the more times we paint over it, the brighter it's going to get, because the more the shadow effect is hidden. We've still got a slight problem with the lettering at the top here. So let's go back onto the background, and we can use a lasso tool to make an initial very rough selection around that area. When we now go into select color range, we can now choose to select just the highlights. And because we made an initial lasso selection, only the highlights within that selection are now selected. When we click on OK, we can make another adjustment layer. And this time we can darken this up, and let's once again take out a little bit of red, just so that that blends in better with the background of the banner that this is on. So that's where we started, and in just a couple of minutes, this is what we're able to produce. Now in the next short video, I'll show you an easy way to add a person to this image to give the picture a more human scale.